Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends, guys. Welcome back to r/entitled people, where people truly believe they can do whatever the heck they want and that the world revolves around them. Guys, it's gonna be another crazy episode today that'll leave you shaking your heads at the entitlement of some people, but the stories will leave you satisfied. Guys, as always, I hope you enjoy the stories. Hit subscribe if you haven't, and the email is gonna be right here so you can submit your crazy encounters with wild Karens. Okay, so this happened in 1989 in Chicago. I was at a grocery store and I had a handful of items. So I entered the checkout line, and before I could put my purchases on the conveyor belt, I was hit with the stench of crap, rotten eggs, and fermented urine. Ahead of me was a homeless man purchasing a 40 ounce of beer, swaying as he was counting out his coins. I stepped back several feet, which then gave a preppy entitled Karen just enough room to shove and cut in front of me in line, giving me a little smirk. However, Karen soon realizes her mistake, and before she could retreat from the wall of stink, I quickly stepped forward, trapping her between me and the homeless guy. Now I could smell him from a good 10 feet away, and it was enough to make me want to gag. At that point, Karen tried to retreat and back up to get away from him, but I just kept moving forward and braced myself. I wasn't moving. The guy was wasted and fumbling to count out the nickels, dimes, and pennies for his beer. Karen and I locked eyes. She knew exactly what I was doing. It took the guy forever to check out, and Karen had to endure that horrible smell. I'm guessing she had to wash her clothes when she got home, as they were permeated with his odor. I smiled all the way home. Guys, that is some super satisfying instant karma right there. And the way OP described him, I think I can smell that homeless guy from here. Like, I just freaking love how Karen cut OP in line and immediately regretted it. And I really love how OP just braced himself and refused to let that Karen move backwards. And seriously, the only thing missing that would have made it so much worse at that point would have been vomit, okay? So speaking of vomit, the next story might leave you shaking your head because the Karen is ridiculous. So I worked at a certain phone company as a wireless consultant, which is basically just a cashier that can change your phone plan and take your money for accessories and whatnot. Well, we had a strict policy where if you bought a phone case or something and want to return it, you have to pay a 25% restocking fee. People often got annoyed at this, so we would often have them sign a waiver on the receipt that says they understand that this is a rule. So on this day, an elderly Karen-looking woman who's maybe around the age of 70 comes in to return an item. I don't remember what exactly, so I'm thinking, okay, fine. I ring up her return and give her 75% of the price back to her. And at that point, cue the mental breakdown. The Karen says, "I never knew about that policy. This is stupid. I've been with this company for years and years, and you need to respect me, blah blah blah." I tell her to give me the receipt so I can look at it. So on the back of the receipt, it says very plainly in big words that there's a 25% restocking fee on all returned accessories. Directly under was her signature. So of course, when I pointed out, this escalated it even worse, and she began yelling and cussing, and finally, she looks me dead in the eyes and she says, "If you don't give me all my money back right now, I'm gonna throw up all over everything." So hearing that, I did try to hold back my laughter, but I couldn't help it. I let the smallest smirk cross my face because of how ridiculous this situation was and what she said. For context, this item was maybe $35 US new, so we're talking like $8 she doesn't get back. And normally I'd cave for such a little amount and refund the whole thing. However, I wasn't a manager and I didn't have the code to do this. So the Karen at that point storms off and she walks out the door. Not even 2 minutes later, she comes steaming back and slams her finger down her throat, and she sent grandma juices all over the phone cases on the wall. At this point, I was completely stunned. I couldn't believe what was happening. I then used all of my 7-hour communication training to handle the situation. I say to her, "Ma'am, please don't throw up on the merchandise." Hearing that, Karen then shoves her finger down her throat again and proceeds to vomit on the phone charger accessories. At that point, I say, "Ma'am, I'm gonna have to call the police." She then proceeds to vomit on the counter I was standing behind, and I was petrified. She then starts to leave, and on the way out, she looks at me and sends it one more time on the glass door. And then she says, "I told you. You should have listened to me." The cops then came, and they honestly had a hard time believing what I said. They told me there wasn't a whole lot they could do. The manager then comes in from her day off, and she tells me to clean it up. And at that point, I just quit. That was the first and only retail job I've ever worked, and thankfully my only ever encounter with an entitled Karen. Guys, out of all the crazy, ridiculous, wild stories I've read on the channel, I never, ever in a million years would have thought that I'd come across something so absurd. Like, we've all heard of Karens not getting what they want, calling 911, attacking people, and throwing a raging tantrum destroying everything. But vomiting all over the merchandise, like, I don't even have words to describe how crazy that is. And the fact that police couldn't do anything about it, like, where are the cameras? So I have no children by choice. However, I do adore my nephew and niece. I like to give them things for their birthdays and Christmas, like books or games or anything I think they might like. Well, last year in November, I get a phone call from my brother. He told me he thinks I should try harder with the gifts for his kids because I don't have kids of my own and I have a very good paying job. He told me he expects me to give them lots of things for Christmas, like better quality gifts, implying that I would not be able to see them again if I didn't. So of course I don't like that at all, and I think what to do with my money is my business. Personally, I think my brother and sister-in-law are jealous because I do travel a lot on vacation, but that's no excuse to be picky and entitled about it. So after giving it some thought, I decided to make sure that he would never ask me for something like that again. So I went to the store and told one of the clerks that I want the most annoying toy that they had. So I ended up buying a drum set, 2 trumpets, a children's keyboard, 2 guitars, 2 xylophones, a few sound toys, makeup stuff for the girls, a bracelet making set, glitter, basically anything that makes noise or can be really messy to play with and annoying to clean up. Those are the ones I remember, although there were a few more that dirty a lot. The naive parents were very happy when I told them that I needed help carrying the gifts. They clearly thought I was obeying them and planning to give amazing gifts to my nephews, which, to be fair, were amazing gifts. But that changed when the children began to open the presents. Of course, my nephews were very happy with everything they received and really wanted to start playing right away. But the best was the face of my brother and sister-in-law, the horror growing with each and every gift they opened. It was wonderful. I left a few hours with a sore head from the repeated drumming and loud banging on the piano, but I was amused because my nephews didn't seem to have any intention of stopping anytime soon. I was reminded of this recently, as my niece is going to be 10 in a few weeks, and my brother has been strongly hinting to me that I don't have to spend a lot on gifts, and that something small and simple is more than enough. As far as I know, between my visits and those of other relatives, several toys have been lost or they no longer work. I think I'll be nice and just buy my niece a couple of books for her birthday. Guys, I love this post, and what a way to deal with entitled parents demanding better gifts for their kids, right? If I were OP, I'd be giving my nephews the gift of drumming lessons for sure, just to ensure the noise continues. And you know what? This is definitely something I'll have to keep in my arsenal. Absolutely brilliant play by OP. So I work at a gas station, and nice days mean nice cars at the station. And given the wealth of the neighborhood, nice cars mean stuff the rest of us only ever see at car shows, racetracks, or while playing Need for Speed. The car that this one guy drove in that day was no exception. It was a gloss black, 630 horsepower, 6.5-liter V12 Lamborghini Murcielago. Now that was a car worth more than most people's houses. Also something completely unreasonable to own in a residential location with a relatively low highway speed limit. Now I definitely noticed the car drive in because it's impossible not to notice the throaty rumble of a Lamborghini as it idles into a parking lot. I then watched as one of our attendant goes over, greets the driver, does the usual shebang to figure out what to get him, etc, etc. But things get a bit odd when the attendant goes to the pump and tries to use the card given to him. He's obviously having difficulty with something, but he's a bit too far away to see what. He then goes back to the driver, speaks with him for a moment, and then hurriedly backs up as the driver flings open the door and starts storming towards the store. I can see the guy ranting and gesticulating towards the pumps, to which the attendant quickly moves and begins punching in the codes for a pay after the fact. Great. Entitlement. Thy name is Lambo owner. Now, that man was very easy to describe. Imagine Mr. Clean. Same bald head, same tight white t-shirt, same tight white pants, same musculature. Now, replace his face with that of Christopher Titus. You are now 99% accurate. Oh, and have him doing this rather amazing scowl and sneer to get his mood right. He then loudly states, "Hey, your guy out there can't seem to make my card work." He then slams what looks like to be a credit card but doesn't sound like plastic down on the counter. Ah, the black Amex. Yes, one of those rare and mysterious things that are semi-legend in the retail community. Now, if you're not familiar with the Black Amex, it's a variation of the Platinum American Express card that you're invited to have. The minimum monthly payment is $2,500, and its limit, while not actually being infinity, is extremely high. They are very rare and only owned by people or businesses with lots of money. They're also made out of metal and slightly thicker than the standard plastic credit cards, which is why it wouldn't run in the pump, because it physically wouldn't fit in the credit card slot. A delicious bit of irony, I might say. I then say to him, "No problem, sir. It seems that your credit card is a bit thicker than most. Let me run it here." And what do you know, it doesn't seem to fit through this one either. The guy then snatches the card out of my hand and tried it himself, but it was pretty obvious that it wasn't going to fit without a crowbar being handy. I then smiled apologetically, and he says, "Well then, just type the damn numbers in manually." To which I say, "Sir, I would like to do that, but in order to do so, I'd have to run a manual imprint on the card. And I can't do that with your card because the numbers aren't raised, and they won't allow me to just write them down. I'm terribly sorry. Do you have another card you can pay with?" So cue the long rant about how this card was supposed to be accepted everywhere, and he was worth blah 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 money, he's so important, the usual drill, which I quickly tuned out. As he was stroking his ego to near completion, I was continuing to monitor what was going on outside, just in case something more important could offer me an excuse to dismiss the guy, such as someone dropping a piece of paper on the ground. But what I saw instead was one of the local cops pulling up to the store. While I did take note of it, it didn't fully register in my mind since nothing illegal was happening, nor did I expect anything illegal to happen. So the cop walks in while the guy is in mid-bluster. He stops, crosses his arms, and leans against the counter as if to say, "Boy, I've had a boring shift, but here's something entertaining I can watch for a few minutes." I then draw my attention back on the guy. I apologize and ask if he has another way to pay. He says he doesn't want to pay another way, that he doesn't have to, as he's a black Amex holder. I explain that since I physically can't accept the card due to equipment issues, I'm gonna need another form of payment. At this point, the idiot opens his mouth and he says something that gives me one of the greatest openings in the history of things being open. He says, "Well, what would you do if I just drove off right now, because clearly I'm not gonna pay with this?" Hearing him say that, I tried. I really tried not to smile, but it was way too much. And the smile I had was quite broad, as I replied, "Well, sir, I wouldn't be able to do a lot, but the guy behind you might be able to do something about it." At that point, the guy turns around to see the local cop, standing there with a big grin on his face, nodding emphatically. The color on the guy's face drained away, as his ego deflated down to much more tolerable levels. In stony silence, he produces a different credit card, ran it, signed for it, and then storms out of the station. As soon as the door closed, the cops and I both started laughing like crazy. When I can finally speak again, I told the cop, "Hey, you should go pull him over for having a taillight out or something." At which point we cracked up all over again. I never did see the guy again. Guys, the only thing that would have made it much sweeter is if the guy actually didn't pay and just ran out not seeing the officer there. Guys, I absolutely hate rich snobs who think they're better than everybody else. Like, for goodness sake, why cause a huge scene because your black card couldn't be swiped, when the whole time you had another friggin' credit card there? Like, it reminds me of that one video of the Karen who cuts everybody in line, and then she shows off her platinum credit card saying that she's so rich. Let me find the clip for you guys right here because she's ridiculous.
Okay, well, she should be in line and go her turn.
She was before you.
Okay, she should go.
I think she's being polite.
Maybe.
She's just tired of listening to you as the rest.
I bet she is, but she should go if she's in line. Definitely.
Ma'am, I need your ID. I just need your ID.
I can
and
put
then
my
you can
phone
put
number
your-
down.
Everybody gets ID'd. Mine
My
gets
phone
scanned
number?
every time I'm here.
I don't care if you know who I am either.
Karen.
I have American Express as platinum. I bet that's it.
You have no product in there because you've given me no ID.
Karen, what's your last
I
name?
have a American Express card that's platinum. Take
Ma'am?
that.
There is no product run in without an ID.
You want to have a.
Do you want to give me an ID?
You know what? Give me a manager.
I
right
am
now.
the
She is the manager.
I don't believe it.
I'm here every day. I have to show my ID every day.
That's a very valid card. Yes, platinum. Thank you.
Cool.
It's a platinum.
We're all
It's
impressed.
Sweet.
You
You
move
don't
along.
know anything.
I'm a 31-year-old female. I live in a block of 6 units, which is apartments for non-Australians. A month ago, the unit above mine went up for sale and sold fairly quickly, and the new owner moved in less than a week ago. This morning, I got up and went to take rubbish out, and I found a note stuck to my door. Now, I honestly thought it was an "I'm new to the building" kind of note, you know, but I couldn't have been more wrong. So the note said, "Dear tenant, I recently bought your building and I wish to introduce myself. My name is blah blah blah, and I think you'll find me to be a fair landlord. However, I do have rules. Number 1, everybody is to be in their units by 9 p.m. If you're going to be out past this time, I suggest you find accommodation elsewhere. Number 2, no pets are allowed. If you have pets, they must be relocated before I do an inspection, or I will call the ranger to remove them. This is the only warning. Number 3, I will conduct an investigation once a month, and you will be present to answer any questions or face eviction. Number 4, failure to pay rent on time will result in your eviction. If we follow these rules, I'm sure we'll get along. Sincerely, blah blah." Now I'm thinking, what the F did I just read? Now a little fun fact about my building, we all own our own units. Nobody actually owns the whole building. Now I won't lie, I got to number 2 and I did have a slight panic attack because I have cats, and there's no way I was giving them away before I remembered that we bought our unit just before Christmas. Now I do want to note that we rented it from a friend prior, and when she told me she was thinking about selling it, we bought it. I didn't even have to move. So in some ways, it did feel like we were still renting, but we actually own our unit. Now, I'm not great at confronting someone. I tend to shake a lot, but at that moment, I was quite angry, so I went upstairs and I knocked on her door. You know that gut feeling you have? It was spot on. So the door opens and there stands a Karen, her hair blonder than my own, her nails long and bright, colored. She didn't look happy to see me there. So I introduced myself and I explained that I live downstairs, but I wanted to talk to her about the note. She then starts to talk over top of me, explaining her letter was basic rules and even a child could understand it. And if I did not like her rules, I could hand in a letter to vacate. So I'm thinking, wow. I told her that I actually own my unit and she hadn't bought it or the rest of the building. I told her I know she recently moved into this place and that she couldn't enforce anything in her note, and she did not like that at all. She starts yelling at me saying that yes, she had indeed bought the whole building and that failure to comply with her rules would mean I would be evicted. Now I was just starting to think that maybe I was wrong when another neighbor opened his door. He came out and asked what the issue was about and asked if she could stop screaming as he worked nights and he was trying to sleep. I told him I was trying to explain that she hadn't bought the building and she starts yelling again. My neighbor at that point tells her to stop, and then he said the best thing I heard that day. He said, "Are you stupid?" Hearing that, her jaw dropped as he explained to her how wrong she was and that he was in fact a part of the Strata Committee, basically the HOA that oversees the building, and she had no right to make rules for everybody. At that point, she gives us dirty looks before slamming the door. I thanked him, and he said the entire time he's lived there, he hadn't seen someone so entitled. And she was definitely entitled, guys. And let's hope she never ever comes in possession of any buildings, for her own sake. Like, I'm still laughing at the fact that she bought one unit and proceeded to act like she owned the whole damn building and then started printing out those outrageous letters to post on people's doors. Like, I'm still trying to wrap my head around how that woman thought she was allowed to do that. Like, did she seriously think she owned the building? Or do you think in her mind she was like, let's see how many people I can get to comply by sending out this letter? I used to work in private security. Every property I can remember had disabled parking. Now, if you park in these spots without a placard, we write a ticket of sorts in most places. It basically says, if you park in handicap again, we can tow you at your own expense. I do want to note that police can also randomly drive by at any time and write a $300 handicap violation. Now, we often get the wannabe disability police who see someone exit their car and have a placard, but since they're not missing both of their legs, they assume the person isn't disabled enough, and they'll come report the handicap fraud to one of us in security. Essentially, we tell them that qualified people have issued them a placard, and we don't have the authority to second guess that. Most do go away saying that they're going to look into it, and we warn them against harassing a fellow employee. Most times, nothing ever comes of it. Well, one property I had at least 90 security cameras covering the parking lot, interior, and everything. So one poor lady who'd been the target of the building's disability police comes to my desk highly upset. She shows me an official-looking card that someone left on her windshield. It basically warned her of the criminal penalties of handicap fraud. It also had a link to where she could go to correct the problem. I knew something was off. I told her not to worry about it and we would find out who put it there. So I had worked in this building for 3 years, and at this point, I was the lead security officer for the building. Somewhat similar to a policeman who knows his neighborhood, I already had a good idea of who did it and when. However, since I was going to be reviewing the camera footage and gathering evidence, I contact corporate security for approval, as I may spend half the day investigating the matter. Well, my instincts were almost spot on as far as when it happened. I caught the time someone was over her windshield in the morning in under 30 minutes. Now, I thought it was one particular employee in IT. It was an IT employee, but not the one I guessed. The clients I did security for had problems with theft from the IT in the area in the past, and their areas are saturated with cameras. I get him coming back inside, and I then back up from before he went out. I can see the bogus criminal warning he printed out sitting on his desk face up for a couple of minutes after grabbing it from the printer tray, and then he walks outside with it. I then checked the link he'd provided online, and it looked like something a web developer would slap together hastily. I wrote it all up, packaged all the evidence together, and sent it to corporate management and human resources. Now, remember there had been a few thefts a while back? At the end of the week, the associate who I caught comes and tells me how ridiculous it is that I can't catch missing laptops, but I can catch him. As I tried to briefly tell him what updates had been made to the CCTV since the last theft, he cut me off with some not so nice words and he left. It never happened again. Okay guys, so for all who are wondering, OP says in an update that the website had the woman's license plate and car make prominently displayed at the top of the page, and essentially said her info had been reported to the Secretary of State and the Secretary's police agency. The link also said that she would have to destroy her placard as criminal charges would be brought on if she was caught using the placard again. Like, some people really need to mind their own damn business, right? But hey, that's r/EntitledPeople, guys. I hope you enjoyed the stories today. If you did, hit that like. And if you missed the last episode on the channel, it's an r/pro revenge where OP's dad abandons her for a new family, and then OP comes back decades later and takes everything from him. It's such a satisfying story, so go check it out if you haven't. And myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.